In a world where the podcast multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little, two dudes must become something greater than themselves, something elemental, something terrifying. A podcast. With great podcasting, there must also be great responsibility. To show the multiverse that it's full of people ready to believe in good. The multiverse will hunt us. They will send the dogs on us, because that's what needs to happen. But it won't be ready to hear from us. Not us, united.
Nick, I have a question for you.
Please ask away.
Good. Have you ever wanted to watch your probably sixth favorite Avenger for about 6 hours while they are running around during the Christmas season, getting into a little trouble, a little street level crime, and maybe getting a new sidekick to be a part of their, part of their crew? Does that sound like of any interest to you?
It's a very specific question,
Mm.
to which I'll say, sure.
Hmm.
And I did, so we could do this podcast.
Wow. Well, coincidentally, I also have watched this, and so would you want to talk about this show called Hawkeye?
Well, I mean, since you asked, feel like we got to.
Yeah. Cool. Well, then good thing we have these microphones in front of us, because this week's episode is going to be about the newest or whatever latest, whenever this episode comes out, series from Disney Plus, called Hawkeye, starring
Yes,
Mr. the Hawkeye.
it is starring Mr. the Hawkeye. Um, post the events of Avengers Endgame,
Mhm.
so it's like current. Um, with even maybe like a tie-in that shows that like the timeline is at least kind of happening around the same time as No Way Home.
Okay, we can talk about that. Oh
There's a what?
no, sorry, I'm making funny faces.
there's a scene towards the end of Spider-Man No Way Home where he is swinging over what do they call that?
New York.
Well, New York, but the Rockefeller Plaza with the ice rink, which is
Oh.
the primary scene for the series finale of Hawkeye, and so it leads you to believe that it's at least somewhere around the same Christmas as Hawkeye. So
Interesting.
kind of cool to watch both of them around the same time and
Yeah.
feel like you're kind of in the same world.
Yeah,
But they're
and they
both
are.
grounded enough that they're kind of doing their own things.
Yeah, and I think actually the Marvel Cinematic is technically a few years ahead of us, right?
Yeah, so Endgame would have taken place in 2023 because Infinity War happened the year it came out, which was 2018. And
Right.
so with Avengers Endgame's 5-year jump, that made it 2023. And I believe Hawkeye is set within a year or two after that,
Okay.
ish. So I
Oh,
think it's like 2024, 25-ish right
ish.
now
Yeah,
in the MCU
close enough.
ish.
Well, we'll do a little non-spoiler review for those who may still be interested in watching the show.
Sure.
But open up. There's a girl called Kate Bishop. She's got some archery
Yes.
skills. She gets
Hmm.
into a little skirmish, and she maybe has a little family troubles. And basically, Hawkeye comes in and helps her out, and maybe they become a team, and maybe they talk about Christmas.
That's that's a pretty good synopsis, I feel like.
Yeah,
Um, Haley Steinfeld killed it as Kate
crushed
Bishop.
it. Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, to come into the MCU this late, you kind of it's not really like a we'll wait for you. It's a jump on
Hurry
in
up and
kind
yeah.
of a
Hmm.
thing. Like we got the machine rolling, so do you want to hop on or hop off? And she's obviously gifted and very talented and is doing a lot of stuff right now. But Um, she held her own up against like an alum, you
Yep.
know,
An
by
OG
her side.
Avenger.
And in some ways, I think the show is geared more towards, you know, they are the two main characters,
Characters.
but they do a good job of. Marvel has done a good job, for the most part, I think, taking these supporting characters and making you like them a lot, making them feel like they're right at home,
Right.
even if they're um, right next to a character who you've known for almost a decade now, you
Yeah.
know.
That's very
Um,
true. Yeah.
so, because we've been with Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton since Thor, which would have been in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
2010. So we've had him for a decade now, and the show does a
It's
good job of
crazy.
actually showing that a little bit, right? Like Hawkeye is a
Mm-hmm.
little more old, like because he didn't get blipped, he didn't get snapped, so
Aged those years.
he's been around for not only the 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but then also the 5 for the jump and then whatever more. So we're kind of seeing him at almost like a 15-year-old from Avengers,
Yeah.
15 years older than that. And so I think they did a good job of making it still believable, but that, hey, he might have arthritis too. Just
Yeah.
like,
I mean, and he is really just a dude. Like he's not. He doesn't have any. He doesn't have any superhero serum. He doesn't have any
agreed.
extra abilities. He's just like a really good shot. And so
Yes.
to show that kind of fragility to his character, I thought was really interesting. And there's parts in the show that are like, oh, like he is like hurt. He can get hurt, and
Yeah.
like he has past, um, basically injuries that I think are kind of interesting, and they dove into that a little bit. So yeah, I think
Mm,
acting wise, great. I think it's really self-contained. Um, show, and I think that doesn't harm it. I think it's just like we had Loki, which was pretty big, expansive, and then Hawkeye's like, "Hey, here's like a like block radius of New York."
right.
And I don't think that's an issue because, like, I mean, the comics handle very similar things where it's like, here's Thanos, and then all of a sudden, like, well, here's Daredevil. It's like there's different there's different layers and levels to um threats. And so I liked kind of taking it back and being like, oh, now let's just focus on a dude with a bow for a little bit. And
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah. I think it's hard because I do think there's parts of this show that kind of make it better than the other 4 that were released in
Yeah.
2021.
Oh,
Um, but I do think I'm trying to thread the needle here. I don't want to say because Hawkeye was my least favorite of the 4 that came out this year that it's somehow bad.
sure.
I think the Disney Plus game was pretty strong. In some cases, almost stronger than some of the movies
I agree.
that came out in 2021. And so, when you hear me say that it's my least favorite of the 4, know that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad show. But um, I just think creatively the other 3 did some things that and I can dive into those later. But
Hmm.
um, it is an excellent show, and yes, I agree. Like Hawkeye's due for some screen time, and I'm glad that they gave him this
Yeah.
because we know enough about him that like we kind of get why he's here, but I think he's even kind of dealing with some of that doubt of just like they talk about branding Hawkeye throughout the show. Like he doesn't have a good brand. Like there's no symbol that Hawkeye really has. So you can't really
Right.
put him on a shirt and people can't really know who he is. They just know that he kind of is an archer that's with the Avengers. And so I feel like after this much time, he is due for a little bit more of a story. So
Hmm. Yeah, and I think they dive into that in his character. I think I definitely agree with you in that the holdback of this show is that it's not groundbreaking, it's not life changing, it's not any of that. It's just exactly what it is, and exactly what it kind
yes,
of needs to be. It's like they aimed for it to be this thing, and it hits that mark. It's just like what they hit isn't extremely interesting, but it is
Hmm.
they executed it well. For me,
Yeah.
it's my third favorite of the four Disney shows. I put it above Winter Soldier and Falcon for
Mm.
me, but it's all very close.
Hmm.
Except below, I would go. I guess we can't go in the ratings, but like, um, I do agree that all four of them are at least like 7 and above. You know, like they're all like
Hmm.
solid hits. I'm like,
Yeah.
some were more interesting and more like, oh, I like this because it kind of affects the world more. But it wasn't like, oh man, this is you shouldn't watch this. Like I watched it with my parents who I've kind of been keeping up with Marvel, and they thought they loved it because like it was just so you didn't really need to know a lot. And you
Sure.
just kind of like watched Hawkeye just coach some girl and shoot some arrows and have a good time. So yeah, if that's your jam, then go for it.
Yeah. No, and they used a Christmas backdrop throughout the show as well. Like this obviously took place during Christmas, and I think that was what was kind of nice about it is this regular weekly viewing around the time when you're anticipating
Right.
Christmas, and it even ends on the week of Christmas if you watched it live. So there's just this cool like almost like Advent style show where
Yeah.
you're kind of like, what do I get on the first week? What do I get on the second week? And
Hmm.
I think it did a good job of like building that, and like the Christmas theme wasn't like overdone, but it also wasn't like used for just this
Inappropriately or
one
whatever. Yeah.
purpose. Like it wasn't like there's this one plot point where we really need it to be Christmas for, and that's why the whole show has to be Christmas.
Right.
It just kind of just I think they just kind of happened to do it because they knew they were going to release it around this time, and so they just did.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of a cool little anecdote is I definitely was in Atlanta the day they were shooting some of the scenes for this show.
So
And
cool.
so if you're watching episode 5 of Hawkeye, there's a part where they're walking past like a car lot, um, and Hawkeye like meets with one of the characters. I was in that parking lot, uh, and they had snow all set up, and there's a bunch of like crew with like Marvel like attire on, and we were trying to figure out was this a Spider-Man or were they filming Hawkeye? And we asked them, and they couldn't tell us. And then these white vans that kept circling the block that we believe had the actors on them because they just probably like, and now we're ready, so come out because people are gonna know who you are, and like let's
Hmm.
just get this over with, kind of a thing. So it's kind of cool to be in Atlanta and know that I was like this close to like not being on screen, but like
To the screen, like where it
something
was.
of the MCU was being filmed in the place where I was at, which just
Yeah.
was really cool.
That's really cool. I like that. That's awesome.
And we just randomly stumbled upon it. We were just out exploring, and then you could just tell like, oh, with all the fake snow and stuff, this is they're filming Hawkeye. So
Nice.
it all came together when we got to episode 5 and we were looking through. It's like we were
Whoa.
there. We ate dinner
Whoa.
right there. It's like, oh, jeez, this is crazy. Um, so that's kind of a neat little thing. But yeah, I would also rate it the lowest out of the 4. My order is uh, Loki, Cap and the Winter Soldier, and WandaVision,
Oh,
then Hawkeye. So
wow.
that's the order I put mine in. So
You have Cap really high.
I do.
Okay,
It's
well
your
my
least favorite, right?
it is mine, yeah.
Yep.
Mine would go Loki, WandaVision,
Yep.
Hawkeye, and then Cap.
Boom.
Wow, interesting.
Hey, I just love me some Bucky.
Hey, that suit alone gives it like 5 points. All right, well,
Amen.
let's just go straight into spoilers. I'm sure everyone's had a chance to kind of check out the show, but I think let's just move into spoilers and overarching. I think it was good, and I would recommend it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Um, they're all pretty much critical views. Like, there's not a Disney Plus show. Like, they came out of the gate strong.
Yeah,
Like, this is definitely a part of the MCU. Things that are happening in these movies, um, are happening in these shows, and these shows are happening in these movies. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a part of the MCU. Like they're
Right.
not doing these weird one-offs, and even Hawkeye is building towards many
Other
things.
things.
Like it appears we're getting some sort of maybe like Young Avengers build up with like Kate Bishop becoming the Hawkeye. Obviously we're in spoiler chat, so we are talking about um, there's an appearance of Florence Pugh as Yelena
Mm-hmm.
from Black Widow's film earlier in 2021. Um, and maybe she's gonna build a friendship with Kate Bishop to maybe become the new Hawkeye and Black Widow. Like there's
Okay.
this really neat dynamic that's kind of built up there. So there's some good setup. Um, and
I
so
love their
yeah, I
little
would.
setup. Like
Hmm.
them their little conversation where they're eating the mac and cheese. Oh,
Yeah,
loved it. I loved Florence Pugh. Like she was great in Black Widow and she was great in this. And so I was like, um, just showed like I was like, yeah, you're awesome. And like I
yeah,
liked their dynamic was really good. And so like yeah, building that off into Young Avengers. Oh yeah, I'm here for that.
yeah. And I think just this just shows Marvel and how confident they are that they just do things where they like, we're gonna have the mac and cheese conversation. Well, now you're gonna know what the mac and cheese conversation is for the next 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
because it was just, they just do weird stuff like that where it's like, we're gonna make some weird quirky thing the thing that
It's
you end up
yeah,
loving the
it's
most.
unique
There's a dog in here that serves really no purpose other than
being a
it's
dog.
just a lovely, cute dog,
Yeah.
but it's like the main character, one of the main characters of the show. Like they just kind of do that. They've always done that with like some of their films, like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, how would I ever care about a tree that can talk? Well, I guess I do. And it says the same thing over and over again, and I still care about it.
Yeah.
Like Marvel has again and again done this where you're just like, they make you care about things that you don't think you probably would have. I'm glad that it did not technically end on an end of Hawkeye. Like, it's not like Clint Barton's technically done.
Oh no, yeah, he's still around.
So I was a little concerned that it was going to be like we finally get a time with Hawkeye and it's going to be about his retirement. And it's
Yeah.
like, please don't. Like,
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that I feel like he's still a major enough player that he can be around and but not like oh he has to be in every Avengers movie because we always got to have Hawkeye.
yeah. So, but I thought his performance was strong. I almost want to like say that Haley was better, but there was some stuff though that Jeremy Renner did, like, and maybe it's just because we got to spend more time with him, but like we they really damaged him up in this, and
Yeah.
like you start to really feel the consequences to those things that we sometimes are like, oh well, the heroes will win no matter what, and it doesn't usually cost Steve Rogers that much because he's
Mm-mm.
going to heal up pretty quick. But there's a part where like Clint's putting in an ear, um,
Hearing aid.
a hearing aid, and they're like, "Oh, what happened?" And he's like, "Hard to say." And then it just shows him like bashing through like walls and glass and all this stuff, and it's just like, "Oh yeah, there is consequences,
Mm-hmm.
especially to the human characters that don't have special powers.
Yeah, I think that was
Besides,
one
you're
of my
just a
favorite
marksman."
parts was that of the damaged Hawkeye basically, and like it brought a lot of humanity to him, and it brought a lot of like, oh, there are these consequences to like, yeah, I fought a bunch of robots on a floating island, and I fought
Mm,
a giant
yeah,
purple guy with a glove that could kill half the universe and now it's just like what do you do with that so like there has to be some consequence of that so I felt like the hearing aid was great and I think the introduction of Echo was super cool with her dynamic of being deaf and like um her being like oh you're relying too much on this machine and you should learn more sign language and all that so I thought I liked that and I liked I guess the hurt Hawkeye was good, I guess to say.
yeah, yeah. But no, you're right. Like, I mean, that's the beauty of Hawkeye, is that it could be apocalyptic stuff and he's in the background just shooting up dudes,
Yeah.
or it could be somebody stole my costume and I did a lot of bad things in that costume, so I got to go get that costume back, and I'm gonna go LARPing.
And that makes
And
sense.
it's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
It's wild that like that's a very hard needle to thread.
Yes.
Like,
And
and
yeah,
they did it.
like the introduction of the LARPing characters, I was like, okay, this is like different and unique, and like it just somehow like it works. I mean, like I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, what else would you really do? Would you be like, and then he goes and meets other people? But like the LARPing was
Yeah.
something unique, and it made sense because he's technically LARPing, I guess, right? Like he's LARPing as Hawkeye.
Yeah, he just happens to also be shooting people in the face with arrows.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So it's
I
not
liked.
role playing, it's just live action.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not real. It's just live action. Just L.A.
It's just LA, baby.
Yeah. It's just L.A. baby. That's just showbiz. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Hey, that's what they say.
So yeah, I think yeah, again, like it was just solid. Like everything they did, solid. It just did its motions. It did executed everything well, and we got to see more Hawkeye. So
Yeah, this like back in one of our previous episodes when we're talking about 2022 having all the reason to fail, I feel like Hawkeye, when it got announced, I was like, oh,
great.
yay.
Yeah.
Like make me care, like
Yeah.
because you've purposely made me not care about him
Mm-hmm.
this entire time. And the fact that it did that, it did make us care and it nailed it. Just shows the confidence and like
Mm-hmm.
the true talent that Disney has. Because I do think legitimately when that was announced, it wasn't like that was on everybody's like
Yeah. No one circled Hawkeye dates.
priority one. Let's do a Hawkeye one.
Yeah.
And clearly, if there wasn't going to be a Kate Bishop, I don't know if there would have been a Hawkeye show.
No, I don't think you can really
I don't think you
do
just
that without a Black Widow, basically.
right. So yeah.
I think let's get into some more nitty gritty Marvel detail stuff.
Yes.
Our Seinfeld gal, at the end of Hawkeye. What's her character's name in this?
Kate Bishop.
No, not Kate. Yeah, but the girl that gives her the folder, the Madam
Oh, Madam Hydra.
Hydra.
She is known as. Oh, what is her name?
Elaine from
I don't.
Seinfeld is how I know her.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll look it up.
But so at the end of Black Widow, she gives Florence Pugh basically saying that, oh, Hawkeye killed your sister. He killed Scarlett Johansson. But then in this show, it's Kate Bishop's mom that like apparently hires her. So I just didn't know how that all interplay, because I thought that we would get Madam Hydra in this, and I was like, oh, cool, this makes sense. But I don't know. I thought that was a little not like connected enough to be like, oh, okay, this is why this is happening.
Yeah. I don't have a good explanation. That felt like a weird, like we filmed this movie and that was our stinger.
Yeah.
And then they figured out that they could do something way cooler in the show and who it would all be connected
Makes
to.
sense,
And
yeah.
they're just like, who gives a shit? We're just gonna do this anyway. And
Oh
so I
yeah, well,
think
I give a shit.
well, I know, yeah, that I agree. I think the only explanation is that why wouldn't Madam Hydra also be in with those people?
Yeah, it makes
Like,
sense.
I
I'm sure
mean,
it's like
it all kind of connects, but yeah, I agree. Like
what I said in my head was, oh,
that continuity could have been better
yeah,
to
in
just keep that.
my head it was the mom hires a hitman, and then Madam Hydra goes out and hires Florence Pugh because it makes sense, because like whatever.
Right.
So I'm like, that, oh sure, great. But I don't know. I think that could be good. Did you ever think the stepdad was bad?
No.
Yeah, me neither. It was pretty obvious that he was just kind of a fall guy. He was just
Yeah,
a
they
goofy
didn't do a
guy.
very good job.
Yeah.
Her name is Valentina Fontaine, but
Valentina
it also has
Fontaine.
a Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Ooh, Valentina Lega de Fontaine.
Yes, but they're setting her up to possibly be
Madame Hydra.
Madam Hydra. Yep. So they showed her at the end of Black Widow, and then
And
she was also in Falcon and the Winter
right.
Soldier. Those order appearances were supposed to be the other way around, though. So you were supposed to see her in Black Widow first, and then she
Okay.
would show up, but they kind of just figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I didn't think the stepdad was bad. I think that was kind of a twist that they're like, whoa. Oh yeah, the mom is who's bad. I'm like, no, that was pretty straightforward for me.
Oh, it was, yeah, and her name, it was Vera, right? Vera.
Vera Farmiga is the actress's name.
Yeah, it's like, yep, she's doing something important besides just being like, oh, hey,
I'm
Kate, how are
mom.
you? I'm
Yeah.
mom.
I'm in the Conjuring. I know what's going on.
Yeah, no, yeah, that part didn't throw me off at all. I do think if you would have told me, hey, after watching the first 2 episodes, you think Kingpin's gonna be in this, I would have been like, why would I think that?
Yeah, who thought that?
And then halfway through the show, they're like, well, it's gonna make sense, and I was like, I mean, it kind of
I
ties
think
in.
I think it
I mean,
makes
it works for the
enough
most.
sense.
It works more than it doesn't. But they are bringing Netflix
Yeah,
character, the ones
officially
that they
back.
like, in so far.
Yeah.
So
So, but
we
is
have
this
Vincent
100%?
D'Onofrio.
Right. We don't 100% know that this is the Kingpin, right?
I don't know, dude. I think you recast them. You don't bring that specific one in and then go, but he's from a different universe,
Yeah.
or this is our version of him. But I do think you can tweak him a little bit.
Sure.
And I believe the last we saw him in the Netflix show is that he finally got locked up. And so we don't know what year that was.
No.
We know that it was probably within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But who's to say he's not somewhat different,
Oh
acts a
yeah.
little weird? Like, those things aren't. And we know the guy's big. So I think they went a little more comic booky with Kingpin. I think they
In
definitely
this
went with
version,
like
yeah.
you almost have super strength because you're so fat,
Mm-hmm.
which is wild. Which I always liked about him. It's like, what's his power? He's huge. I was like, whoa.
Got it. Let's go.
It's like he's as strong as Captain America. Why? Because he's fat.
Because he's just huge.
um, so I thought that was really like a nice touch. And it was nice to see like they're bringing Charlie Cox back too, because I think they truly know that Daredevil was
Is
a
the best.
strong show.
Yeah.
Like that was a very good show. Like
Yeah.
maybe like top tier. Now that we know it's MCU as well, like top tier MCU show.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Like
Oh,
probably better than any of the Disney Plus shows.
I would put it up. Yeah, I would. The first season, 100%. The first season was really good. So
Yeah.
they're finally bringing back all the Netflix shows. Which, you know what? Sure, do it, please.
Some so far. We don't know. I don't think
Right.
Iron Fist is showing back up.
No, I would say.
I think they're gonna be picky.
I think they're gonna be cameos with Jessica Jones and Luke Cage would be very minimal, but Daredevil and would be the most likely. And Return to Kingpin. I'm all for it. I was slightly though now looking back, I shouldn't have thought this, but I'm like, oh, I was kind of mad that they killed Kingpin, but they didn't show him die.
Correct.
And as you pointed out, they got some other plans for him, right?
Well, so from my understanding, there is a comic book line where the Kingpin does go blind somehow.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with how, but I know that it leads to like an interesting Daredevil arc where what if his arch nemesis was also blind? And so they both kind of have this like
Connection.
connection, which is interesting because they are kind of yin and yang. They probably in some ways bring out the worst in each other. But what if they also had the same weaknesses as well? Which Daredevil obviously, like when his blind went away, or when he
Lost his
went
sight.
blind, he also gained the sense to almost see just differently.
Yeah, but he's a really good
Whereas,
lawyer, so
but he's also a really good lawyer.
yeah.
Whereas Kingpin's like he's blind, but he is still fat, so he can still do stuff. So I think specifically that them showing us that it was like a headshot kind of pointed at his face specifically was meant to lead us to believe that he's not bulletproof, but maybe his fat head can also block some of the bullet.
Well, yeah, and we didn't see the body, all that stuff. So
Yeah, the camera panned pretty quickly to be like, and we're gonna do this off screen.
yeah. So she could have shot to the side, and any number of things could have happened. So
Yeah, and the
I don't think they're
oh,
bringing in Kingpin back just to be like, hey, one episode and he's dead.
agreed. I do think what's wild to think about though is that No Way Home was so crazy with its cameo usage that both Kingpin and Matt Murdock showing up recently in Marvel stuff has been not as exciting.
Yeah,
When it would have been headliner for a month
yeah.
any other year.
Now it's like, oh
Probably
yeah,
any
good.
other month.
Yeah,
But it's like December was just like
yeah,
Matt Murdock's cameo in No Way Home was kind of just like meh. That's the
yeah.
least exciting part of the movie is that they're bringing back one of the best characters from Netflix, and we're just like, no, wait, what happens
Not
later?
important. Not important.
wait. Willem Dafoe's here. Like, did you
Yeah.
see? It's like,
You see this guy? You see this guy?
and then Kingpin shows up at the end, and I was just like, that's awesome, but like, did you see? Like,
You see No Way
Toby's
Home yet?
Toby's back. Toby's back, baby. So it's wild.
Yeah,
It's wild that those cameos basically are just like, hey, that's cool. You're gonna be remembered for like 2 days
yeah,
because Toby and Andrew showed up in No Way
yeah.
Home.
There's bigger things going on.
So I feel bad for them because that is like that's huge news because when Netflix deal ran out with them, so when they said we're not making a fourth Daredevil, that was when the clock started to tick to be like, okay, Marvel, you can get them back in 3 years.
Sure.
That's the deal, is that like we're giving you temporary rights, but you have to keep making stuff or you have to get rid of them. But they had to wait 3 years. So it's like they're not gonna bring Daredevil back. Like that's way too long. And sure enough, they waited their 3 years, they did their time, and they're like, trust me, we figured it out. And it's like a part of
He's
me
back.
wonders how many of these eggs just perfectly fall into the basket. Like
Yeah.
these movies were gonna get made, these shows were gonna get made regardless, but they're like, oh shit, you know what? That 3 years is up. Let's
Perfect.
do this. Like,
Somehow Kingpin returned.
somehow King Griffin returned. So
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of, I think they're like, well, here's a street level villain that we have, and let's throw him into a street level
for
hero.
sure. And I will say the Tracksuit Mafia, while funny and humorous, I don't know if I think that's the biggest separation from Netflix Kingpin.
Yeah.
I don't know if he really would have been involved with the Tracksuit Mafia, if I'm being honest.
No,
They made him a little
that's
more
fair.
not flamboyant, but like what's the word?
It's comical almost.
He became a little just they just kind of tweaked it just a little bit
Mhm.
higher. Like he's wearing like a Hawaiian shirt underneath his
Yeah,
white suit.
yeah.
He's wearing the top hat. He's hanging out with the Tracksuit Mob. He's doing things
He's
on his
more
own.
eccentric.
He's doing like one-on-one meetings instead of like behind 100 guards.
Hmm.
He
I
doesn't
think that's
act
just
quite like
That's
the
just tones of the show, though, too.
agreed.
Like
Yeah.
Daredevil was very, very bleak, dark, kind of, and
Yes.
Hawkeye was a little more vibrant. And so,
So I think I might go back and watch Daredevil just to be like, it probably fits fine. But I think if you're gonna really nitpick, I think the only thing that feels different is that like Kingpin just felt a little bit more comical
yeah,
than
yeah.
he's ever been in the shows.
I didn't care too much for the Tracksuit Mafia, besides Echo and her right
Right.
hand man. I think there
Yeah.
was this interesting dynamic for me that was like the Tracksuit Mafia. They're trying to be funny, and they're like, "Oh yeah, bro," and like they're trying to like bring humanity to them, and I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then we
Right.
slaughter them in the last episode, and I'm like,
Right.
I I don't know what they were trying to do there. It felt like, hey, all these people that like are lives and probably like don't like, just are trying to get some money, and and they're like, hey, this one has a girlfriend. Yeah, we're gonna like stab all of them and kill them and then shrink them into a tiny little van and then have them get taken away by a hawk and just be like, hey, that's a comedic moment. Anyway, we just ruined like 10 people's lives.
Well, the only thing I will say to that is that when Hawkeye was Ronin, he probably ruined more than 10 people's lives.
Fair,
I
but
think
like
he ended like thousands. So,
I just don't think you'd be like, anyway, haha, funny. My
oh
girlfriend wanted to see
yeah,
Imagine Dragons. Anyways, stab you in the face.
stab you in the face. Yeah. Oh, 100%. Um, I think the Tracksuit Mafia is a comic book thing that there's like, hey, another comic book thing. And if Echo didn't have to get introduced for her show, then it wouldn't have had to exist. I
Yeah,
mean, it
fair.
does kind of tie into Kingpin and all that stuff, but it's another one of those things where they puzzle piece their way into how can this spawn new things,
Yeah,
and
and that's
that's how they
fair.
did it.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I will
Thoughts
say
on
the trick
Echo?
arrows
Or
were dope.
oh
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
Let's go with Echo. That's fine. Let's go with Echo. Um, I unfortunately think her future with the show is just their way of rebooting Daredevil.
That's fair.
They made
Like,
her too connected to Kingpin that it's like, so you're going to be the vehicle in which Matt Murdock comes back.
yeah,
So
and then like,
I
yeah,
hope you have
you're
a good show, but you're doing the whole Echo thing. Like she can't hear, he can't see,
sure.
he can't see. Like they're gonna do all that. It's gonna be awesome. But again, it's gonna be the Flash, like with Michael Keaton. It's like, hey, the Flash is pretty cool, but Michael Keaton coming back as Batman's dope,
Yeah,
so
fair. That's
dope. And
fair.
it's like I just feel like they set her up to be like, and guess what? We're doing Echo, the first like deaf superhero. Isn't this awesome? It's like you're setting her up so that you can just do Daredevil, right? And they're like, shut up.
How do they
That's
even
what it
talk
feels
to each
like.
other?
I don't know. I don't even know. I just think like she's connected to Kingpin, which is the end game.
Right.
And so they try to be like, well, she killed him off. It's like, no, she didn't. You're not gonna bring Vincent D'Onofrio back for
For one episode.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, like, yes, God bless her. I hope it's great. Hope she has a great show. I'm excited to learn more about Echo. Unfortunately, I feel like you're a plot device to get Charlie Cox back in the MCU.
Mm, I
I could be
don't.
wrong.
I think She-Hulk is more of that device.
That is a lawyer show, but maybe that's where Matt Murdock's gonna live though. He might just be the like cameo guy that just
Kind of
bounces
comes back
back
in the yeah. Yeah. Do you
because
think
they're
we'll
doing
get a
Moon Knight
whole
stuff.
Daredevil
Moon
show?
Knight. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. Like they kind of made it seem like he's back into lawyering, so maybe he's just kind of trying to do the lawyer gig, and then something drags him back. Like because he's always seen the Daredevil part of himself as kind of like the demon that he's like fighting
Fighting. Yeah.
against. So maybe they go lawyer route first, but then like the Moon Knight show that's like street level stuff, Echo street level, Kingpin's back. I gotta unleash the demons again, kind of a thing.
Fight like
I
demons,
don't know.
man.
Amen. I just don't think we knew enough about her to be like, you know what that girl needs? A whole show.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when I heard that she was having a show. I was like, oh, I mean, like she's an interesting character. I like her a lot, but
Yeah, it's very not as mainstream as most of their moves have been.
yeah, yeah, it
So
is. It is the most out there of their moves. Like,
that and
I
like
mean,
Miss Marvel, even Miss Marvel feels more popular than Echo. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
As of recent, yeah, obviously, yeah.
But maybe this is the new Hawkeye where we're like, they're gonna make a show about this. All right.
Yeah. hmm But
Um.
no, all strong performances. The ladies killed it in the show. Like
Mhm.
they're all super good, and I enjoyed having those moments where like there would be like just silence and you
Yeah.
just saw sign language. So you got a chance to connect with them on an even different level. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's something Daredevil did a good job of as well. Like it would try to touch on like I can't actually see right now, I'm gonna have to use. So there's just when you can heighten if you can display that correctly in the show, I think it really hits.
Yeah.
So
Trick
no
arrows.
qualms. Trick arrows were dope AF, as the kids would say.
Yeah. Lit.
They were lit, fam. Uh, they were like and subscribe. They were, they were.
High
Watch me
key,
play Minecraft.
they were great. Yeah,
Yeah, they're great.
they were Fortnite dance out of 10.
They were Fortnite Ninja Minecraft. They were
Yeah,
so good. Um, uh, no, it was great to finally see him. Like he's done a few trick-y things, but he's never done like this is my Pym arrow. Like
yeah,
this is my like, hey, shoot this thing, and I'm gonna turn an arrow into a building.
yeah.
Just like they did like the crazy stuff, and it was like this is sick without being like
Ridiculous.
this felt as grounded as like a Batman movie,
Yes. My
but
favorite.
still went comic booky
Uh-huh.
enough to be
Yeah.
like, oh, he can do some weird stuff.
Yeah, I enjoy the trick arrows a lot. I think they did that was kind of like a draw for me, honestly, of the show. Was like, okay, what are we gonna see for trick arrows? My
Right.
favorite was the little one that he shot, and it had a note inside of it, and it had like the little like hinge for the door. I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And you like kind of get to see him like engineer them and how
Mm-hmm.
kind of finicky they can be. Like they're not like the best quality because it is just a dude with a couple wires and arrows, and
Yeah.
whatnot. So that was cool. Um, I did like that Hawkeye finally got a costume, and they did kind of pay homage to like the purple.
Oh, with the purple
Um,
with the mask and everything. Yeah.
they
Once he
didn't.
draws
Yeah, I
it.
mean, he didn't fully like get the full on
Yeah.
like feathered mask like he
Mm-hmm.
does in the comics, where it's like pretty wild to see somebody walking around like that. But I felt like
Original
that it was
merchandising.
it was good. I'm a big purple fan, so like I also just enjoy the color purple, but like I felt like it did a good job of like, hey, it's just good armor, dude. Like just
Mm.
put it on. Like um because I feel like he always has like his arms exposed and just
Yeah.
like it's like, dude, you're the most vulnerable. Like, wear some stuff. Even Captain America's wearing like armor and has a whole shield. Like, and you're just out here
With
with an
nothing.
arrow, a bow and arrow. It's like, um, so that was cool. And I mean, again, this one was probably more by the books than all the rest of them,
Yeah.
which is probably why it feels the weakest because it just didn't really change the game at all. Um, but I don't know if it changing the game would have really made sense to do that. Like I just feel like
No.
this was unfortunately a show about Hawkeye, and in this regard, like with what they've done so far, I think it was limited to how good it could be.
Yeah, I think so too. I think like as mentioned earlier, it's like they had a kind of a box and they had a goal and they hit it. They did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But like this was the
but I don't know if
best
they
this
could have
was gonna
expected
be.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think Kingpin heightens it enough. I think the performances were great, but I think they kind of like they got an A+ for Hawkeye.
yeah.
I just don't think it makes the show A+.
No, I that's exactly right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You feel me on that?
I feel you, dog. You know what gets an A+ in my book? Um the I could do this all day musical.
Mm,
In my A+, I mean, that was the cringiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
mm. Amen to that. I'll give you an amen.
Ha!
Um, got him. The one redeemable thing I will say about the musical is that the lead singer, that's not Captain America, but the guy that kind of like leads it up to Captain
Sure, yeah.
America, the regular civilian, is the lead singer of the band in which Jack Black went from to be in School of Rock.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Wow.
when
Yeah.
he switched to the school, Theo was the guy that kicked him out of the band. The lead singer of No Vacancy is also the lead singer of that musical
That's
piece.
nuts. Are you kidding? That's crazy.
Some pretty wild trivia there for you. I don't
Wow.
remember the guy's name, but I had Kate look it up while we were watching. It was just like, I've
Wait,
heard this voice before because the way he was singing, I was like, this feels like No Vacancy. It feels like that. Heal
dude, that's
me, I'm
insane. How
hot.
did you
I'm
guess
like,
that?
dude, I have a weird like mind. Like I'm that guy
Weird.
who like sees a face and was like, "Oh, hey, that movie from 10 years ago that I haven't seen in 10 years. That's what they're from." And people are like, "Who gives a shit?" I'm like, "I know, who gives a shit?" But that's how my mind works.
Nick does.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Here,
well,
I'll look
that's
him up and I'll
awesome.
send it to you.
Yeah. Well,
but he killed it. He did
yeah,
his
he did
part.
kill.
It's
I think
just
like
it's too bad that it's not good.
no, I think it was meant to be not good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's what Disney would have done like 15 years ago.
Yes.
Hopefully they won't do it today, but
But like that make that in a world like that,
he's
like
also
with
in Tick Tick Boom too.
oh really? Oh well, tick tick boom.
Tick Tick Boom.
tick tick boom goes the dynamite. But yeah, if we had superheroes in our world, there'd be a musical about it in a heartbeat,
Oh, 100%.
and that would be
Yep.
it. Yeah.
And that would be his tagline. And then Hawkeye's just like, and I'm here and I shoot
Oh,
arrows.
the
Woohoo.
best part was like, and Hawkeye seems cool and like a really nice guy, and that's like the best they could think about him was like, yeah, he seems pretty cool, I guess.
Nice. Agreed. I sent that IMDb to you, so you'll have to look
Sick.
at that later.
Oh, let's go.
Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of would recommend. Obviously, it's good. It's good Christmas stuff too. Like it does kind of fall in. It does enough Christmas to be considered in there as like a Christmas thing.
Yeah, they definitely like
Um,
they took an episode to kind of like episode 4 or something, where they just kind of like stopped and like hung out for
yeah.
a while.
Hmm.
Which it kind of slowed it down, but it was fine. Yeah, there is enough Christmas to be like, yeah, it is Christmassy, and then the whole deal of like, oh, he has to get back by Christmas so that he can Christmas.
Yeah,
Um,
they did a good job. I think it's by the books, like I said, and that might have constrained it a little bit.
mhm.
But I also don't know if that's what really hurt it that much because I don't know if Hawkeye really. I
There's
don't know
gonna
if
be
you do
more
like
in that.
Hawkeye supernatural Hawkeye. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, like
I
if
think
you
we
were to
needed just
like,
a chance to run some beats with him.
yeah, exactly.
So
Um,
I think that's
yeah,
all we got.
that's all I got. I mean, like it was good. Future for Hawkeye. Um, I'd see a season 2 with
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be more Kate from here
yeah.
on out. Um, but they did do enough to hint that there may be more than meets the eye to the Barton crew.
Bum,
Um,
bum, 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 bum.
it apparently is that his wife was also an agent of Shield. Laura, right? Laura Barton
Laura Barton.
was at one
Laura.
point Mockingbird, Agent 19 of Shield. So that's a specific agent number. Um, so this is interesting because a show that acknowledges that some things outside the MCU-ish or MCU adjacent Daredevil does exist.
Mm.
But if Laura Barton being Mockingbird is true, then either you can have multiple Mockingbirds or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. never happened because the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show definitely dove onto the Mockingbird thing because that was one of the things that they could do because that was a character that wasn't really being utilized in the MCU. Um, my understanding of Mockingbird is that she's kind of similar to like a Black Widow, but through the Shield
Mm.
Academy, essentially, kind of like same power set type things, like just so kind of funny. But Tony Stark in Age of Ultron was like, when he gets to their house, he's like, "That's not your wife, that's an agent," and says like, and those are little agents. When the kids show up, and it's like, well, he got part of that right
Yeah.
because one of them actually is a Shield agent. So that could be cool to see them maybe do like a
Team up.
what if like mom and dad did a season 2 where they have to protect the kids because somebody's coming after their family or
Because
something.
now it's Halloween and they gotta get back
Yeah,
for the candy.
so that'd be fun to kind
Yeah.
of do like a mom and dad have to protect the kids even though the kids don't really know how
What's going
how
on?
it's getting happen. So
How the happening is happening.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And yeah, it is funny to be like this show to confirm that one universe exists, TV show exists, but to discontinue another one basically. So
Yes, that is interesting. And I feel like we've always known that because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could never truly connect. It would have a few episodes of like, the movie happened, so we get to show up at the aftermath of the movie. But then it got so far out of left field by the end of it that I feel like Kevin Feige's just like, too messy, not going to deal with it.
yeah.
It's over. It never existed. Even though it was centered around Agent Coulson, who clearly did exist in the MCU early on. So it is going to be interesting to see how Marvel does a good job of like connecting and not connecting, because I think the average viewer doesn't watch all the things, and so they're going to show up and they're just going to be like, hey, cool, these guys are here. And maybe they just don't even have to touch on it. But then there's people like you and me who have watched all the content and are like, so what's canon and what's not canon? Because
Right,
you can't just
exactly.
keep like, that was a good show, so that's canon. That was a shitty show, so that's not canon. Like,
Right. If you bring back Daredevil, you bring back all the other ones.
right.
It's
And I mean, I
they're
think
technically
there's
canon.
a case to be made that why not bring back Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. I think there's definitely also a case to be made of why you pretend that Danny Rand never existed
Yeah.
and that Iron Fist isn't.
Yeah.
Like,
Honest, if Iron Fist was better, they would have brought it back, all of them. Like, there's
yeah.
no problem bringing all of them back. But since like Iron Fist is like, I
And there's just one that's clearly superior than the rest of them, and that
yeah,
is Daredevil. So
yeah,
it's the safest pick for sure.
yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. We will see. Well, that has been our review of Hawkeye, the Hawkeye show, the season 1 of how many Hawkeyes are there? There's actually 2.
There's 2 of them, and they're purple.
So that was the answer to that question really quick. Um so I don't know. Let's know what you thought of how many Hawkeyes are there? 2 Hawkeyes.
Please do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard plenty about
Mm.
Hawkeye. Because who hasn't? I mean, the show's crazy. But you've now heard from us, not us, United.
Right.
All right, everybody, stay safe. We love you.
United like
Goodbye.
2 Hawkeyes being on the same team.
That's right. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. You've just listened to Not Us United. You can find us under Not Us United on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Please leave us a review and consider subscribing to our podcast. You can reach out for future podcast topic suggestions at notusunitedpod@gmail.com.